I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Roll call, Mr. Lombard.
Cullum.
Yes.
Odie. Yes. Klumper. Yes. Saxer.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
All right, with that, if there are no changes to the agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented tonight, please.
Second?
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. There are no conflict of interest disclosure or waiver requests this evening. That takes us to approval of the minutes. There was a special meeting on October 7th and the regular meeting minutes from October 8th and October 22nd. If there are no questions or concerns on those, I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented, please.
So move. Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Community input. We just had a public forum where we had some questions asked about the boundary line change. And so that takes us to our financial items, bills and claims. Mr. Lombard.
Okay. I'd entertain any questions that the board members had on the listing of claims that we had. I had a couple noted on page 2 that right at the bottom there you'll see $5,600 for flu vaccine. Once again, we provide a flu shot for all of our employees at the school district. It's a nice benefit that you guys provide to them. Feel free to ask me any questions.
What's page 1, Paul, the B&H photo video, 17,600?
That was quite a bit of camera equipment, multiple cameras that the high school computer department ordered through the Perkins grant, and accessories with that camera, telephoto lenses and that stuff. So it was all through the Perkins grant that they applied for earlier in the year.
Okay. Page 10, just a small item, more curiosity. Parkston School District, $770.
That is a special needs tuition bill, special needs student tuition bill.
Oh, okay.
The Parkston School District bills out for a resident or a special home in the district there, so they just bill, Parkston School District just bills us each month for that.
Thanks.
Page 12, there was a whole bunch of charter bus travel this month. A lot of the bills coming due throughout the past month and a half, probably $36,000 of charter bus travel all across the state. Page 13, I also noted that the Sioux Falls School District, the Career Academy, the high school CTE as we refer to it, we purchased 40 slots from the Sioux Falls School District at about $2,500 a piece. We make a payment now, payment number 1, $50,000, and we'll make another payment of $50,000 later in the year. Total bills, $496,000. The advance payment breakdown of $11,765. And pay vouchers of $50,855. Substitute teaching, the main expense there, and then $122,000 of food service bills. Any other questions specific to the listing? Feel free.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the bills and claims as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Financial report, Mr. Lombard?
Okay, on the cash report for the month of October, reading down the third column there, we came into the month of October with $3.9 million, receipted $2.1 million, and expended $3.2 million. So we ended the year with, ended the month, I should say, with $2,816,000. $1,730,000 was in the general fund, $51,000 in the pension fund, and $34,000 in the enterprise fund. I will note, and you can see interfund transfers going back and forth, this October and April are two of the lower months that we'll encounter with our cash flow situation. in the school district. And I did note in the general fund, at its low point in the month of October, was down to 190,000 plus the $1 million CD. So the $1 million CD that you have invested there is basically your rainy day fund, or whatever you want to call it, your reserve fund. The remaining portion of our fund balance of $5.2 million is used for cash flow. Now next month the property taxes will start coming in, but kind of just shows you where the low month will hit, and April will be that or even a little lower. The $2.1 million of receipts are itemized on the next 2 pages. See, at the end of the month, you'll see on page 2 of the receipts, we get about $1.5 million of state aid, and that comes in the last day of the month. So that's why we ended the month in the general fund with $1.7 million. And I'm telling you that the low point was $190,000. That was on October 25th, right after our payroll date. And then the money comes in afterwards to bring it back up at the end of the month. Investment report of $1 million. The payroll and benefits summary, $1,834,000 of payroll. Pretty normal month now for the 18-19 school year, $1.8 million. And then the financial statements, the first 2 pages of the revenue, we're through a third of the year through, with October being completed, which would be 33%. The revenues don't line up with that a third of the way completed because of the tax revenue. As you can see how they compare to last year, pretty similar numbers there. On the expenditures, they'll fall in line more with the fiscal year of 33% done. You can see the general fund is at 32.5% versus 33.3% last year, so 0.8% lower than it was at the same time last year. Capital outlay fund is 66% expended versus 60% at the same time last year. Special education fund is 31% expended versus 38% expended last year. A lot of that is due to what we've talked about before, the East Dakota Co-op bill being paid quarterly now instead of annually. Pension fund and the bond redemption fund, similar numbers. Food service fund shows a net gain of $1,100 at the end of October versus a loss of $2,300, so very similar to the same time last year. And lastly, the trust and agency statement had $168,000. Any questions on the financials?
If there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the financial statements as presented tonight.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Lundberg.
Thank you.
Takes us to general business, and our first item under there is administration reports. Administrative Center, Superintendent Larson.
I'll defer to Mr. Lundberg for the
Okay?
report to start off.
Okay?
Yeah, every year we show this to you, and it's a tool that's used by the legislature a lot when they look at the cost per pupil of each of the individual school districts in the state of South Dakota. So it's a lot of information that's used by them, and I like to present it to you in a somewhat abbreviated form. List on this is from the 17-18 school year, so the top half of it lists all the large schools. In Brandon Valley spends $7,786 per student, which is ranked 144th out of 149 school districts. So what I like to equate this to is you're being efficient with the dollars that are given to you. We're spending it because our teacher salaries, I always say our teacher salaries and our test scores are very competitive in the state of South Dakota, yet we're spending at the lowest level, at one of the lowest levels in the state of South Dakota. So you should be very happy with the rankings and the numbers there. I did expound a little bit this year because the question would be, why is a school that's similar in size to Brandon Valley, what allows them to spend more money than we do? Where do they get their extra money? And I've responded to you in the past that it's federal revenue is one area, or an opt-out is another area, if they've opted out of the general fund property tax freeze. So I did take a couple examples of the larger school districts in the state of South Dakota. Like Harrisburg is $81.39 per student. why are they spending that much more than we are? They have an opt-out in the general fund that generates roughly, I wasn't able to determine exactly, but their tax levy is 20% higher than ours from the data that is listed in the Department of Education there. So I think it's roughly about 1.4 million they can generate from that opt-out. And that would be $350 a kid if you divided that 1.4 million divided by 4,000 students at Brandon Valley roughly. So $350 per kid plus our $77.86 would equal $81.36, and they're spending $81.39. So you can kind of see that. I did another example with Aberdeen. Aberdeen gets 1.1 million more in federal revenue than we do. So you take the 1.1 million divided by 4,000 kids at Brandon Valley, and it's about $275 a kid. So the 275 plus 77.86 that we're at would be $8,061. So very close to the number that we're showing for Aberdeen. And the last example, just kind of give you a summary of all of them. Watertown, a very comparable district to us. The difference in the spending per student for Watertown, though, is once again federal revenue. They get about $600,000 more federal revenue than we do. And you ask why, a lot of that has to do with our socioeconomic situation here. These schools both had free and reduced percentages of 35 to 40%, whereas ours is at 19 or 20%. So a lot of that federal revenue is based on the fact that they're lower socioeconomic than Brandon Valley. But $600,000 more in federal revenue would equate to about $150 a kid, plus the $7,786 would be $7,936. So real close to what their number is at Watertown, $7,970. So you can kind of see the trend there, and it gives you more of a concrete example, I think, of why the difference between the schools, because in theory, it should be exactly the same. I mean, with few minor variations that one school might get more in gate receipts than another school, but that's where the differences come. The big differences come from opt-outs and federal revenue. Any questions anybody has on that report? Thank you.
Thank you for all you do and your office does to help us generate those numbers that we can take credit for every year, even though we know that we're not the only ones taking credit for that. So thank you very much. Superintendent Larson?
Very good. Before I get started on a much lighter note, I want to note that I apologize for my scruffy appearance, but Business Manager Lundberg and I are engaged in a friendly wager for No Shave November. Whoever shaves first loses, and the loser has to contribute to a charity of the winner's liking. So there's a charitable cause to blame for our appearance, and I'm hoping I can hold out, but I don't know. It's going to be a tough month. So anyway, just a note. All right. Now to serious business. Facility Review Committee. So we've been engaged in a facility review process over the course of the last month. Our Board of Education, Building and Grounds members, Member Schrader and Member Odie were involved in that process. Approximately 30 individuals from our community engaged in that strategic planning process for the use of facilities and the future of facilities. I would tell you that the purpose of that committee was ultimately to do two things: develop a non-binding facility recommendation for the Board of Education, specifically on a new elementary school and the location for that, and then also develop a long-range vision for the Brandon Valley School District. We will be submitting a report to you and presenting that report to you at our last meeting in November, on Monday, November 26th. So look forward to compiling our results and communicating that publicly, so that we can look forward to engaging in the recommendations if the board so chooses moving forward. The boundary line proposal we talked a little bit about earlier this evening. You can see a timeline of how that process has looked to this point. Everyone was notified. Following that, there was an informational presentation to you, the Board of Education, and we've engaged in parent meetings over the course of the last week. public hearing tonight, and then ultimately a formal recommendation and potential school board action here in late November as well. The reason we do that is in as timely a manner as we do is so that the planning and preparation for such a change can be communicated, and then administratively we can also manage our staff as appropriate. I would note that our 1920 calendar has been developed. We're working off of draft 2. We worked through our administrative council, teacher liaison council, classified council on the development of that calendar, and tentative timeline for adoption, early January, an initial presentation to you, the Board of Education, so you can ask her any questions or provide feedback, and then tentatively approval there at the end of January. We want to do that so we're able to communicate with our families what the 1920 academic school calendar is for planning purposes moving forward. School accountability data, I would note that our administration worked through the pre-appeal window, and I would thank them for their time combing that data and that information. They submitted to the Department of Education mistakes that they found, errors, those types of things. Make certain that our school accountability data is accurate, and the release date of the school accountability data from the Department of Education is, it was originally, is it November 20th now? I thought I saw an email today and they'd moved it back one day to November 20th. So it's the 19th or 20th, the state, the Department of Ed will kick out that school accountability data. You will receive an overview of the school accountability data at, again, our second meeting in November. What I would tag the State of the Schools address as we have had it in years past. Also want to just note that we're currently engaged in the development of our staff work environment survey. We've tagged it BV Listens. You'd find an overview within the superintendent's report on that. Basically, I would outline that within our strategic plan, we talk about staff development and evaluating our work environment. And so you can see BV Listens is ultimately a work environment survey. I would tell you that research demonstrates if we can move the needle on a couple of teacher perceptions in one direction, it has a direct correlation to moving the needle on student achievement. So when we talk about moving from good to great, this is one of those types of things that we can move from great to greater, or however you want to look at it. We can move the needle on student achievement through gauging feedback from our staff. So that provides you a basic outline of the survey, and then how it ties directly to our strategic plan, and then just a couple of sample survey items that you would see that our certified staff would answer. We are currently creating a tool, an instrument for our classified staff as well. So both our certified and our classified staff will receive a work environment survey, because it takes everyone to make education work. Look forward to rolling that out in January. Late January is the timeline on our BV Listens project. And then just would note, no school Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday on November 21, 22, 23 for Thanksgiving. 2-hour early dismissal on Friday, December 21st. Christmas breaks outlined there. We come back to school on January 2nd. So with that, I would certainly entertain any questions you may have.
I have a quick question on the BV Listens survey. Who will analyze those results?
Certainly. So at this point in time, the intent would be to administratively, myself and Ms. Nelson would create the instrument, distribute it via SurveyMonkey. It's got some nice features as far as analytics and whatnot. We would then utilize that when we make decisions or administrative recommendations moving forward. As far as who all has access to those results, I guess we haven't really broached the topic of whether or not we want to make that a publicly viewable document and report to the Board of Education, or we would use that internally. That certainly is something we'd be open to discussing, though. But at this point in time, The survey would be analyzed administratively through the Director of Instruction, Curriculum, and Assessment, and myself. And the building level, because that was talked about at our principals level meeting. Sorry, I should have added that. We wanted to be able to target and identify building levels so we're able to drill down on decision-making, whatever that may be, at the building level as well. So there will be some of that. Administratively, we'll need to include our building principals on that data and information as they drive decisions at that level. Very good. Thank you. Good question.
Any other questions for Superintendent Larson or Business Manager Lundberg at all tonight? If not, thank you very much for all your hard work. High school, Dr. Talcott? Mr. Schluckaway? All right. Middle school, Mr. Frecking, anything tonight? Okay, Mr. Skibsted? Mr. Babb? Ms. Foster, anything? Mrs. Hoffkamp? Mr. Horst? Mrs. Palmer? Ms. Nelson, anything tonight? Mr. Henschel? Mr. Marceau? Saturday night, not a big deal? I mean, you beat Washington.
You want me to come there to say?
Yes, please.
It's not my trophy, so I didn't bring it. It is in my office, though, just until it gets engraved. Yeah, congratulations to the football team and cheer team and staff and community who supported like no other. Just an incredible feeling. We always talk about big school, but have that small town atmosphere around the school, and it was proven out, I think, very well on Saturday night. Anything else? Okay.
Congratulations. Being a former Warrior, it's especially congratulations. So, no board policy tonight. That takes us to our general business items. I would entertain a motion to approve items 1 through 5 as presented, please.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Personnel, we also have 4 items for consent approval under there. I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented, please.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. There's 3 items under the information only section. Under central office communication, there are some building permit applications, actually quite a few for your review. That takes us to the board reports, the formal reports. Does anyone have one tonight that they would like to share? Nutrition and Wellness is meeting tonight at 7:30, and EDC, we moved our meeting up actually to tomorrow. So just, that's already gone out publicly, but just to let the public know, so.
On Friday, we had an appear for Legislative Day, representing the district. You guys all have the draft in front of you for some of the resolutions. Draw your attention to just a few. There is one, just kind of let you know that will not be drawing the yellow flag for support, and you guys can definitely catch me later if you want to talk more about that, but that would be the alternative instruction oversight. It's number 11. I think it's on page 7. It's a new resolution. What it would be for us as this board, having authority to approve or deny homeschool exemption requests based on your nonverbals. I have your support on that. So that would be something I would say at this point in time that would not be something we want to throw our time in. Other than that, there's a lot of time and energy that's being spent at Capitol Hill around behavioral mental health resources. I think I've mentioned it before, we may not see a lot of those resources in education at this time. They're going to spend a lot of that resources in public health, but that's okay because that will still support education. So that's just something to keep the back of your head. Finally, draw your attention, it's more towards the back, I think it's on page 12, and that's number 3, and that's the commitment to the half-penny sales tax ratio. The reason I want to draw your attention to that is, again, it's HB 1182. I think it's the Parchment Amendment. The reason I draw your attention is if you know anybody that is holding a political office. It's to bend their ear on this. We want, obviously, they know what is law, and they'll probably just state back that if they don't like it, they can change it, which we get. But my little soapbox is, yes, we know why they were drawing that sales tax. It's to fulfill things in education, specifically for teachers' education or for teacher salary. Even though that's not always where it goes, we still want to support that half-penny sales tax, because traditionally, education gets about 20% of the total that is in budget. So the greater that budget is, the greater of that 20% we get. So that's just kind of my little soapbox, is that we do want to continue that half-penny sales tax. So that's just my little blurb on that. But you have all of them in front of you. If you have any questions, feel free to grab me, and I'll let you know if I get anything else after Friday. And my final thing for the activities, for the activities and curriculum technology, for more activities, I want to congratulate our Quiz Bowl champions. I know that we had a Quiz Bowl first place. Fantastic play. Want to just honor that as well. Also, they had some great flexibilities around our football. And Mr. Marceau, you did a great job on recognizing everybody else publicly. Just want to recognize a thank you to you for all that you did.
Madam Chair, may I? Sorry to step out of line. On city affairs and legislation, I want to thank Member Saxer for all of her work. Being a delegate is a lot of time and commitment, and she travels to Pierre, and she'll also be receiving the phone calls and emails when action is necessary, so a huge thank you to her on that. But in addition to that, I would note that in early December, our Board of Education will be working to meet with our state legislators for a morning breakfast session. That will be a publicly public notice meeting, as the quorum or the entire board will be present for that. So we're working to meet with them in early December, invite them in for an opportunity to roundtable on educational issues and what we see as needs. And then in addition to that, we are in the process of working with the city to find a date where we can sit down and have a collaborative session prior to one of our meetings. So that will be with the city council and their leadership. So those are two items to note on city affairs and legislation that I would just draw to your attention.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, under travel reports, there are 5 reports there for your review. And that takes us to the end of our meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
There's been a first and a second. All of those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Is it really next week? And then it sounds like the next board meeting is going to be full of a lot of different things. So I would invite you to come back for that one. Thank you.